The dazzling lightning, accompanied by a thunderous roar, suddenly echoed through the sky, as if a giant serpent was rampaging madly, spreading across the heavens. Beneath the dim sky, the thunderbolt surged, and the scene was truly terrifying. On the desert floor below, figures retreated in panic, their ears filled with the deafening roar. Some of the weaker ones even had blood trickling from their ears, clearly injured by the shockwaves of the thunder. At the center of the impact, the desert had caved in, and enormous cracks spread like a spider's web, with sand cascading down like a waterfall. After avoiding the shockwave, everyone was finally able to lift their heads and look toward the source of the explosion. In the sky there, the space appeared to distort, as if a vacuum zone had formed, and within 100 feet, the air had been completely shattered. Within this vacuum, two figures remained frozen in the posture of clashing fists, their bodies as still as statues. The terrifying energy that had once surged around them had quietly dissipated, leaving only a gentle breeze ruffling their robes. In this area, all sound had quieted, and everyone's gaze was fixed on the two figures. Who had the upper hand in this earlier, intense clash? Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Mu Chen's body slightly trembled. The thunder that had once flickered in his black eyes had completely vanished. He calmly stared at Lu Tian before slowly loosening his clenched fist, his fingers slightly curling as he gently flicked the layers of jade-like bone covering Lu Tian's body. Crack. What seemed to be a light, force-less flick produced a terrifying reaction. With a slight cracking sound, the audience watched in horror as cracks suddenly spread across the surface of the jade-like bone. Crack. Crack. The subtle sounds became more frequent. Everyone's eyes focused, and they saw the once smooth jade bones around Lu Tian's body gradually appearing with fine cracks. The cracks spread at an astonishing speed, and in just a few breaths, they covered every corner of the jade bone. Mu Chen's fist slowly descended. A faint trace of blood appeared on his fingertips, but he merely glanced at it and wiped it away. Boom! The jade-like bones on Lu Tian's body suddenly exploded, scattering in all directions, and Lu Tian's once stiff body was sent flying backward as though struck by lightning. Boom! Boom! As Lu Tian was sent flying, explosions of blood mist erupted from his body, and blood poured from his mouth. In just a dozen breaths, everyone could sense the spiritual energy around him rapidly weakening. Puff! A few more mouthfuls of blood sprayed out, and Lu Tian finally couldn't hold on. He plummeted from the sky, crashing into the yellow sand below. Blood mixed with sand, making him appear extremely disheveled. When Lu Tian's body struck the ground heavily, the desert, once filled with the howling winds and sand, fell silent again. Whether it was the teams that had surrounded him, or those like Lin Zhou's group, who were being hunted, they all fell silent. The oppressive pressure Lu Tian had given them was so intense that witnessing this once dominant figure crumble was truly a shock to everyone. We won. Su Huang and the others showed joy, their tense hearts finally relaxing. Luoli and Wen Qingxian also smiled, though their expressions clearly showed they were not surprised that Mu Chen had defeated Lu Tian. In the sky, the lightning runes on Mu Chen's body had completely disappeared. He then descended and landed beside Lu Tian, who lay in the sand, covered in blood, breathing heavily. Blood trickled from the corner of Lu Tian's mouth as he glared at Mu Chen, disbelief filling his eyes. His bone deity body had actually been broken by Mu Chen using pure physical strength. This was something even Jixin had failed to achieve. Looks like your bone deity body isn't as strong as you thought, Mu Chen said, staring at Lu Tian. Lu Tian glared at him viciously, the malice still evident in his eyes. He then grinned coldly and said, Mu Chen, you're impressive. This time, I really misjudged you. But defeating me isn't that great. Right now, Jixin is so powerful that you can't even imagine it. He sees you as a rival, and that will be the most humiliating thing for you. Still trying to be a good lackey at this point. Mu Chen chuckled, then crouched down beside Lu Tian, looking at him calmly. He slowly said, I don't think defeating you is such a big deal. Mu Chen's voice was calm, with little fluctuation, but when LV Tian looked at him, he couldn't help but feel a trace of unspeakable sarcasm. This was because he could sense that beneath the calmness in the young man's black eyes, there seemed to be the hidden presence of a lion, causing an unsettling feeling in his heart. Mu Chen clenched his hand, and a beam of light shot out from Lu Tian's chest, landing in his palm. It was none other than the Academy token from LV Guang's team. On the Academy token, there was a score of 20,000 points. LV Tian's face changed immediately when he saw this. Just a trophy, Mu Chen smiled and said. He snapped his fingers, and another Academy token appeared in his hand. He casually swiped half the points from LV Tian's token, and then the score on their token rose to around 13,000. This score was something Mu Chen and his team had never reached before, but even so, they were still nowhere near the top 16. Mu Chen tossed LV Tian's token back. The latter gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with resentment. Whoosh! At this moment, Luoli, Wen Qingxian, and Su Huang arrived, and when Qingxian came closer, her beautiful eyes glanced briefly at the many teams that had previously attacked Mu Chen, and she asked, "What should we do with those guys?" Mu Chen played with the Academy token, a cold light flashing in his eyes as he said, "Since they took action, they will naturally have to pay the price. These teams have been following LV Tian and robbing others for days. This outcome is their own fault." Su Huang was taken aback and said, "There are at least 100 teams here. If we go after them, it could be troublesome." In the air, the teams that had attacked Mu Chen earlier seemed to have sensed the hostile intent in his gaze. A chill ran down their spines, and they subtly gathered closer. With so many teams together, surely Mu Chen wouldn't dare to provoke them all, right? Mu Chen clearly noticed their movements. A mocking smile curled at the corner of his mouth as he turned his gaze toward Lin Zhou and the others. Lin Zhou, upon meeting Mu Chen's gaze, was momentarily stunned. His eyes flashed, and he immediately understood what Mu Chen was thinking. He then grinned widely, nodding with a sinister smile. "Everyone, these bastards were robbing us with glee earlier. We can't just let them off the hook, can we?" Lin Zhou leapt into the air and, looking at the several dozen teams that had been surrounded, shouted harshly. At the sound of his shout, the dozens of teams became restless, hatred appearing in their eyes. However, they were outnumbered and didn't dare to act hastily. "Everyone, grievances have a source, debts have a master. It's only right to pay back what you owe. If anyone disagrees, I'll help you with that," Mu Chen said with a faint smile. "Mu Chen, you're so vicious," someone yelled angrily. As those words were shouted, the dozens of teams that had been surrounding Mu Chen earlier suddenly glowed with determination. They gritted their teeth and soared into the air, forming a siege formation, completely surrounding the 100 or so teams. "Do you dare?" The teams that had previously surrounded them were furious, their voices echoing. They could hardly believe that these teams, who had been targeted earlier, would dare to strike back. Humph! Accompanying their shouts was a cold snort. Then, a golden light burst forth as when Qingxian, holding a golden spear in her hand, floated in the air. Her cold gaze swept across the teams, and under her chilling stare, they trembled, fear written all over their faces. "Hand over your points quietly, and I'll be somewhat polite. If you're stubborn, you won't be able to participate in the upcoming Spiritual Academy Grand Competition." When Xuan's melodious voice spread out, but the coldness in it made many people's hearts shudder. "Attack!" Seeing this, Lin Zhou gave a loud shout and charged forward first. "Make them return all the points." Behind him, dozens of teams followed, their angry shouts reverberating. The sky instantly descended into chaos. Although the teams had the advantage in numbers, their morale was shattered. With Mu Chen, Wen Qingxian, and the others glaring at them, they were soon overwhelmed, completely defeated. Some attempted to flee, but Luoli acted swiftly, forcing them all back. In less than 10 minutes, the 100 or so teams had been entirely defeated. A series of figures crashed to the ground, and in the end, they had no choice but to hand over their academy tokens. Lin Zhou stepped forward and collected all the tokens, holding them in his arms as he walked toward Mu Chen, handing them over with a grin. "Although I know your personality, rules are rules." Mu Chen stared at the hundreds of academy tokens before him, momentarily stunned. The sight of so many tokens laid out together was indeed awe-inspiring. Given Mu Chen's usual composure, even he found himself a bit dazed by the scene before him. He focused on the tokens, wondering if he could collect all of them. If he did, their score would surely push them into the top 8. Beside him, Su Huang and the others had similarly eager expressions, clearly shaken by the sheer number of tokens. Luo Li stood quietly to the side, not saying a word, while when Qing Xian crossed her arms in front of her chest, her beautiful eyes watching Mu Chen closely. Behind Lin Zhou, dozens of teams were also watching Mu Chen. Their gazes were complex, but none of them spoke up, knowing that if it weren't for Mu Chen, they'd likely be the ones being robbed today. According to the rules, Mu Chen was entitled to the lion's share of the spoils. For the others, even getting a little bit was considered a stroke of luck. Taking a deep breath, Mu Chen fixed his gaze on the tokens, pausing for a moment in thought. Then, a smile spread across his handsome face, one that was warm and genuine, in sharp contrast to the cold, calculating smile of Lu Tian. It was the kind of smile that could melt even the coldest hearts. It was clear that Mu Chen's smile had a kind of infectious charm, as evidenced by the way the teams behind Lin Zhou began to relax. "Captain Lin Zhou, you've given me quite the dilemma," Mu Chen said with a smile, looking at Lin Zhou. Lin Zhou froze for a moment, scratching his head. "You don't need to feel burdened. Actually, this kind of thing happens all the time in the Spiritual Academy competition. Weak teams get exploited by the strong ones. It's nothing new. No one's going to complain." Mu Chen gave a casual smile and said, "I'll take 10% of the points, and when Qing Xian and the others can take 10%. The rest, we'll all split. After all, this is also your hard-earned spoils." Lin Zhou and the others were left stunned, staring at Mu Chen in disbelief. They had collaborated with stronger teams before, but those cooperations had always meant the strong teams used them as cannon fodder. In the end, the spoils were always unfairly divided, with the strong teams taking the lion's share and the scraps left for them. So, they found it hard to believe that Mu Chen would only take a small symbolic portion. "Don't look at me like that. I'm not so noble as to not care about points. I just prefer taking them from the weak rather than exploiting them," Mu Chen said, pointing at the still-down Lu Tian with a slight smile. Lin Zhou and the others exchanged looks, silent for a moment. Finally, a faint, barely perceptible gratitude appeared in their eyes. Their teams were neither strong nor weak, and they had been in a rather awkward position in the current Spiritual Academy competition. At this stage, they had essentially become a point extraction pool in the eyes of the stronger teams. Such a status felt degrading, so seeing someone like Mu Chen, who offered them a genuine choice and respect, was a first for them. Because they knew that Mu Chen wasn't just giving them a choice, he was showing them respect. "Thank you, Captain Mu Chen," one of the team captains behind Lin Zhou said, cupping his fists and speaking in a low voice. The captains of the dozens of teams behind him also cupped their fists in gratitude, their eyes reflecting a sense of appreciation. These past few days, their morale had been low, having been repeatedly exploited by strong teams. With each score they lost, their dignity was chipped away as well. Mu Chen watched this scene in slight surprise, then gave an awkward smile. He turned his gaze to Wen Qingxian and said, "You take that 20%? I did promise I'd try my best to get you back to first place." Wen Qingxian turned her head slightly to look at him, then smiled, her red lips curving up. "I didn't expect it. Captain Mu Chen, you really know how to win people over." Mu Chen couldn't tell if her words were sarcastic or genuine. He furrowed his brows and said, "I'm not thinking about anything that complicated. I just simply don't like exploiting others." "Fine, I didn't say you did," Wen Qingxian replied with a soft smile. Her voice unexpectedly softened as she gazed deeply at Mu Chen. "Earlier, when you took all those points, I would have been disappointed if you had swallowed them all. It's not about right or wrong. I understand that in places like this, strength speaks. No one can fault you for what you do. But if you can't even resist such temptation, I'd find it hard to believe you'll go far on this path." She glanced at Luo Li, her gaze carrying a deep meaning. "The general principles sound good, but I'll just take it as a compliment." Mu Chen scratched his nose, though his thoughts were simple. He just didn't think much of using such a method to earn points. After all, he knew that this wasn't the original intention of the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. Teams that relied on exploiting weaker ones to rack up high scores would never truly stand at the top in the end. You're pretty thick-skinned. When Xingxian rolled her eyes at Mu Chen, the softness from before vanished completely, replaced by her usual proud demeanor, as regal as a phoenix. With a flick of her jade hand, when Xingxian didn't hesitate to draw 20% of the points from those academy tokens. As the blinding light soared, their academy's score surged by another 20,000 points, once again closing in on Xingxian, who was in first place. After taking the points, when Xingxian casually tossed the tokens back to Lin Zhou and the others, letting them scramble to divide the points. The scene, after a brief moment of chaos, regained some order. The looks cast at Mu Chen were filled with gratitude. Mu Chen, brother, we can't thank you enough. This kindness we'll remember, Lin Zhou said, slightly bowing. He didn't waste any time, gesturing for his team to leave after expressing their thanks. Mu Chen watched them walk away, smiling faintly. What about this guy? Looks like he doesn't think much of you. When Xingxian pointed her delicate finger at LV Tian, who was now gritting his teeth, clearly harboring a great deal of hatred for Mu Chen. Hearing this, Mu Chen narrowed his eyes slightly. LV Tian, with his strength, posed some threat. If he let him off too easily, LV Tian might come back for trouble later. Mu Chen, you've taken the points. What more do you want? Are you planning to kill me? LV Tian sneered. Even though he had fallen into Mu Chen's hands, he didn't seem worried that Mu Chen would do anything to him. Kill you? That's not necessary. Mu Chen smiled. His eyes glimmered, and a faint black light appeared in his palm. Within that black light, there was an incredibly strange power. It came from the sealing power contained within a page of the eternal diagram in his body. With a slap, Mu Chen pressed his palm against LV Tian's chest. The sealing power quickly entered LV Tian's body. Shortly after, LV Tian felt a surge of fear as he realized that his spiritual energy was being drained at an alarming speed. In just a few breaths, the already injured LV Tian found his strength plummeting to the level of a physical body tribulation, and the fluctuation of his spiritual energy had all but disappeared. What did you do to me? LV Tian finally felt fear as he discovered his spiritual energy was being suppressed, unable to be freely manipulated. His spirit scanned his body and discovered faint black light flickering within his meridians. These strange black lights were the reason he had lost control over his internal energy. I've temporarily sealed your spiritual energy. Mu Chen smiled indifferently. With LV Tian's current state, it would take at least a month to expel the sealing power. By then, the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition would likely be over. LV Tian's face turned ashen, his eyes filled with murderous rage. However, Mu Chen didn't bother with him anymore. He calmly turned to Luo Li, when Xingxian, and the others. Let's go. Time to move on to the next target. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure shot into the air, followed closely by Luo Li and the others. Behind them, LV Tian could only roar in frustration, his rage boiling over. LV Tian's team, once ranked 10th, had suddenly fallen out of the top 16. This news created quite a stir across the vast central region, especially since LV Tian was considered a well-known expert. No one had expected his defeat to come so swiftly. It was a reminder that the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition was truly filled with hidden dragons and crouching tigers. On a green peak, Xingxian stared at the Academy token, his brow furrowed slightly. LV Tian has been defeated, Mu Feng said from behind him. Could someone be targeting us? This place is full of hidden talents. LV Tian was too arrogant. His downfall was inevitable, Xingxian replied, not overly concerned. After all, ups and downs were quite common in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. Obviously, neither of them really paid much attention to this seemingly normal event. However, after this mood lasted for a day, it was suddenly shattered. Even Xingxian, with his usual cunning, couldn't hide his darkening expression. The next day, once again, a sensational piece of news spread throughout the vast central region. The team led by Wang Jiang, who had obtained the inheritance of the demonic crocodile hall and came from the 10,000 Beasts Academy, was also defeated. The person who defeated them was Mu Chen. On the mountain peak, Mu Feng looked at the grim-faced Ji Xian, because both of them clearly sensed the growing hostility. Mu Chen had already started to challenge Ji Xian to a duel. At this stage, the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition had entered its final phase of battles for supremacy, with one strong team after another emerging, constantly reshuffling the top 16 rankings. Therefore, under such a major shift, except for a few truly powerful teams, the rest of the teams were nervous, fearing that at any moment a fierce team would spring up and defeat them, standing over them to proclaim their fame. Even under such circumstances, the teams led by LV Tian, ranked 10th, and Wang Jiang, ranked 8th, were both defeated, still causing quite a stir in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. The teams that defeated these two strong teams were the same. They were from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, led by Mu Chen. Furthermore, more insiders knew another piece of information. LV Tian and Wang Jiang were both Ji Xian's allies, and Mu Chen was specifically targeting those teams that had formed alliances with Ji Xian. His intent was already quite obvious. This targeting left many people astonished. Ji Xian's fame in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition had become overwhelming. This once proud genius of Spirit Road still shone like the sun, even in a place full of geniuses, making others only look up to him. Many former strong teams had been defeated by Ji Xian's team, becoming stepping stones for them. So now, in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, there would probably be no more than a handful of teams left that could challenge Ji Xian. For this reason, when people found out that Mu Chen dared to target Ji Xian at this moment, they were so surprised. After all, no matter how one looked at it, Mu Chen and Ji Xian were clearly worlds apart in terms of fame. So, everyone was waiting for Ji Xian's response to Mu Chen's challenge. But what surprised many was that after the teams of LV Tian and Wang Jiang were defeated, Ji Xian didn't take any action. It almost felt as though he had forgotten about the challenge from Mu Chen. This response from Ji Xian was unexpected by everyone. They couldn't understand why Ji Xian, who was usually so aggressive, would choose to hold back this time. This clearly didn't match Ji Xian's usual style. However, no matter how much confusion his actions stirred in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, Ji Xian didn't change his approach. It seemed as though he was still quietly defeating team after team, collecting points, and consolidating his position as the leader. Amidst this growing confusion, something else noteworthy happened. A new team made it into the top 16. Normally, such sudden appearances of dark horse teams had become quite common during this period, and apart from the initial surprise, it quickly became just another regular event. However, what intrigued everyone was that this team also came from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Ranked 16th, Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Captain, Shun Songsheng. With this new entry, Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy became the only academy with two teams in the top 16. After defeating Wang Jiang's team, the team led by Mu Chen had accumulated enough points to reach the 10th spot. Ji Xian really knows how to endure. On a hill, Mu Chen gazed at a small town ahead. Occasionally, streams of light descended from the sky. Why doesn't Ji Xian just take action against us directly? Now that we've made it into the top 16, Ji Xian should be able to see our position, Su Huang asked with some confusion as he stood behind Mu Chen. These past few days, he had been on edge, expecting Ji Xian to strike, yet strangely, Ji Xian, who should have been furious over their targeted actions, hadn't made a move at all. Because Ji Xian is also cautious, Lu Oli said softly. You all really underestimate your captain, when Qing Xin smiled and added. In Spirit Road, he and Ji Xian have been longtime rivals. And in their clashes, Ji Xian hasn't gained a clear advantage. Su Huang and the others chuckled awkwardly, their gaze shifting to Mu Chen with a hint of surprise. With Ji Xian's growing reputation, they had started to realize the terrifying power Mu Chen wielded. A person like him was undoubtedly a genius of the heavens, one who could overshadow countless other talents. Yet, even this heavenly genius hadn't had much of an upper hand against Mu Chen, indicating that Mu Chen also possessed abilities and strategies on par with Ji Xian. No wonder no one could stop Mu Chen after he joined our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Turns out he's a big shot. Zhao Qingshan said with a bitter smile. Back when they were still at the academy, they had harbored some grudges over Mu Chen's new status, but now they couldn't help but admire him. Stop flattering me. Mu Chen smiled helplessly, saying, the reason Ji Xian hasn't moved yet is because he fears the three of us. He pointed at himself, Luo Li, and Wan Qingxian. Among the three, besides Mu Chen, the other two stunningly beautiful girls were no pushovers either. In Spirit Road, Luo Li had forced Ji Xian to lose his chance at the Spirit Crown, and when Qingxian had claimed the top spot, overwhelming all others. Among the two girls, when Xuan's fame rivaled Ji Xian's, and many likely saw her as the one who could contend with him. As for Luo Li, she seemed the most low-key. Even Mu Chen didn't know how much power this future queen of the Luo god clan was hiding. Every time he asked, the girl only smiled without speaking, which left Mu Chen feeling both curious and vexed. With these two heavyweight figures by his side, even Ji Xian, no matter how proud, wouldn't dare act recklessly. Moreover, there were clearly other reasons at play. If Ji Xian truly went to war with Mu Chen and the others, it would undoubtedly be a battle of epic proportions. No matter who won or lost, both sides would be gravely injured. At the same time, there were other formidable teams in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition, and those teams also posed a huge threat to Ji Xian. Perhaps in normal circumstances, these heavyweight teams wouldn't rush into a confrontation with him, but if he clashed with Mu Chen and was severely weakened, those teams would likely be the first to take action against him, seeing him as the greatest threat. For all these reasons, even though Ji Xian knew Mu Chen was deliberately targeting him and had eliminated his subordinates, LV Tian and Wang Jiang, he hadn't taken the initiative to strike back. This guy clearly possessed tremendous patience. Su Huang and the others sighed in relief. Not having to face the strongest team in the current Spiritual Academy Grand Competition right now allowed them to relax a bit. You're getting ahead of yourselves, Mu Chen said with a faint smile. He crossed his long fingers lightly. From what I know about Ji Xian, he won't endure this forever. The reason he hasn't acted yet is because he doesn't have absolute certainty. Ji Xian is cautious. He won't act unless he's sure, and when he does, it'll be with thunderous force. So, Mu Chen looked up, his black eyes cold as he gazed into the distance. The current calm is just the calm before the storm. Once Ji Xian makes his move, it'll be a true storm. Su Huang and the others were momentarily stunned. Although Mu Chen's voice was calm, they could still sense the coldness beneath it. Ahem, whatever, let's not worry about him. After all, we have three heavyweight figures here. If it comes to a fight, we won't necessarily be afraid of them. Su Huang coughed awkwardly and then looked at the academy token. But I didn't expect Shen Songxing and the others to have made it up here. Mu Chen smiled and nodded upon hearing this. He gazed at the team ranked 16th on the score ranking. For Shan Songxing and the others to make it into the top 16, it was clear that their strength had improved significantly compared to before. It seemed that they had also gained quite a bit of opportunity in this relic continent, which made Mu Chen feel somewhat reassured. It's been a long time. I wonder how they're doing now, Mu Chen said with a smile. He missed Shan Songxing, Li Xiantong, Su Xian, and the others. How about we go find them? Su Huang suggested. Mu Chen shook his head. Now that we're up against Ji Xian, walking with them might bring trouble their way. Huh. When Qingxian, who was nearby, suddenly exclaimed in surprise. She then pointed at the first position on the academy token, her face slightly tense. Ji Xian and his team's position is changing. Mu Chen and the others immediately looked over. Sure enough, they saw Ji Xian's team's position changing at an astonishing speed. Clearly, they were moving at an incredible pace. Could they be coming after us? Luo Li asked in astonishment. Mu Chen frowned slightly, his eyes fixed on the changing position of Ji Xian's team. After a moment, his pupils suddenly contracted, and a cold, murderous intent surged from the depths of his gaze. They're not coming after us. Mu Chen's handsome face grew dark, and his hands clenched into fists. A killing intent rose in his eyes. He's planning to make a move on Shan Songxing and the others. Su Huang and the others' expressions changed drastically upon hearing this. On the hill, the atmosphere instantly grew heavy, a murderous air quietly rising. Su Huang and the others looked grim. They never expected that Ji Xian, instead of coming after them directly, would turn his attention to Shan Songxing and his team. He's going to use their own method against them, Wen Qingxian said slowly. For some time now, Mu Chen had been eliminating Ji Xian's allies, and now Ji Xian had chosen the same approach. He was targeting another team from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy as a response to Mu Chen. Ji Xian is very cautious in his actions. He knows that if he does this, you will likely take action as well, but he still chose to move forward. So, I think he must be well prepared, Lu Oli said, looking at Mu Chen thoughtfully. Mu Chen nodded slightly. Ji Xian was indeed quite calculating. If he had no confidence, he would never make a move so easily. But now, he had taken the risk. This meant he must have put aside his previous caution toward them. What exactly had happened to make him suddenly lose that fear? Mu Chen's eyes flickered with a hint of killing intent. This opponent was still as difficult as ever. What should we do now? Su Huang and the others looked at Mu Chen. If Ji Xian's team was well prepared, then their actions might be anticipated, and once a fight broke out, it would surely be the most intense and brutal one in the Spiritual Academy Grand Competition. In that case, even Mu Chen would not dare claim that they would win for sure. Mu Chen had known from the beginning that when he attacked LV Tian's group, Ji Xian would not dare to retaliate easily. They had to remain silent and wait for the right moment. This silence would inevitably affect their reputation. And things had indeed unfolded as Mu Chen had anticipated. However, he had not expected that Shan Songxing and his team would make it into the top 16, thus entering Ji Xian's sights. Now, Ji Xian's move had turned the tables on them. Many people had probably noticed, and they might now be waiting for Mu Chen's reaction. Would he continue to stay put? Or would he take the risk of trying to rescue them, despite Ji Xian's possible preparations? If he chose the former, it could deal a significant blow to Mu Chen's reputation, since this situation had been caused by him. Now that Ji Xian had turned his anger toward Shan Songxing and his team, if Mu Chen stood by and did nothing, many might criticize him. But if he chose the latter, a failure would mean Ji Xian would never give them another chance to turn things around. Mu Chen's dark eyes gathered a cold light as the tension in the air thickened. After a moment, he slowly closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his expression had gradually calmed. His body tensed slightly as he spoke in a calm voice. Let's go. No matter what Ji Xian has prepared to deal with us, this situation was caused by us. Whatever the outcome, we must bear the responsibility ourselves, Mu Chen said calmly. Moreover, I'm quite curious to see what kind of grand scheme Ji Xian has planned this time. But no matter what, I will make sure he understands that if he wants to swallow me, Mu Chen, his stomach won't be able to handle it. Just like in the Spirit Road, so it will be here. Su Huang and the others stared at the calm-faced young man before them. His black eyes, shining under the sunlight, reflected a layer of light arcs. Even when facing the most formidable figure in the Spirit Academy Grand Competition, whose reputation had shaken the entire event, he still showed no fear. Mu Chen's composed demeanor gradually calmed Su Huang and the others, and they all solemnly nodded in response. Lu Oli gazed at Mu Chen's face for a while, then smiled gently. She liked the confidence hidden deep within this young man. It was not the ignorance or recklessness of youth, but a self-assurance rooted in his very being. Ji Xian was indeed powerful, but he too had a pride that should not be underestimated. When Qingxian gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and glanced at Mu Chen, she knew that the pinnacle battle that would shake the entire Spirit Academy Grand Competition was about to begin. The only question was, which of these two monstrous figures would emerge victorious? Mu Chen took a deep breath, then suddenly waved his hand, his figure soaring into the air. He transformed into a streak of light and rushed toward the direction indicated by the Academy token, where Shan Songxing and the others were. Behind him, Lu Oli, Wen Qingxian, Su Huang, and the others quickly followed, the sound of wind breaking through the air, as if carrying an air of murderous intent. At the same time that Mu Chen and his group began rushing toward Shan Songxing's location, many eyes in the central region noticed this change. The atmosphere immediately became tense. In the central zone, Ji Xian's name was unmatched. After all, His consistent top spot on the score ranking spoke volumes about his astonishing abilities. Facing such a monstrous figure, no strong team dared underestimate him. Everyone knew that the team led by Xuan had the qualifications to aim for the top. As for Mu Chen, perhaps few had known about him before, but after he shattered Xiao Huang's formation and defeated Emocio and his three companions with a single move, followed by eliminating Xuan's allies, LV Tian, ranked 10th, and Wang Jiang, ranked 8th, his reputation skyrocketed at an astonishing speed. Especially after he eliminated Xuan's allies, yet Xuan remained silent. Mu Chen's name was remembered by more and more strong teams. It was clear that anyone who could make a figure like Xuan suffer and endure without retaliation would not be someone others could afford to underestimate. So, everyone was eagerly awaiting the clash between these two, wondering what kind of earth-shattering battle it would be. Therefore, when they saw the movements of Mu Chen and Xuan, nearly all the strong teams instantly focused their attention on them. They had a premonition that the most eye-catching confrontation since the start of the Spirit Academy Grand Competition was about to begin. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, the air was filled with the sound of countless rushing winds. Strong teams with formidable power shot into the sky like streaks of light, all heading toward some distant location on the vast land. It was as if, without warning, the area where all the strong teams of the Spirit Academy Grand Competition had gathered was quietly fueling the fiery and intense atmosphere to its peak. Whoosh! A streak of light dashed across the sky. Mu Chen was at the forefront, his gaze firmly fixed on the distant horizon. His handsome face remained unchanged, yet he could feel the intense atmosphere of the land, and he knew that it was being stirred by him and Xuan. At this moment, they had likely become the most talked-about team in the Spirit Academy Grand Competition. Xuan and his group seemed to have noticed our movements. Their speed has suddenly increased a lot. Mu Chen's gaze sharpened slightly as he glanced at the Academy token in his hand. Sure enough, he noticed that Xuan and the others had significantly increased their pace, a speed that even caught him by surprise. Increased speed. Mu Chen's voice was low as he spoke. They had to find Shan Songxing and the others before Xuan did. Otherwise, if they fell into Xuan's hands, it would be a form of restraint for him, something Xuan was most adept at. As soon as he finished speaking, a dragon-shaped shadow suddenly formed beneath his feet, and the roar of the dragon echoed through the skies as his speed surged once more. Luoli, when Qingxian, and the others also immediately unleashed their full speed, quickly following suit. Only Su Huang and the others were left behind a little, but at this point, Mu Chen and the others could no longer afford to worry about that. They had to outpace Xuan. While the vast land suddenly became a battlefield, the atmosphere in a certain valley remained unexpectedly calm. Shen Songxing, Li Xiantong, Su Xian, and the other three were sitting cross-legged in the valley, quietly resting. Not long ago, they had just emerged from a fierce battle. Their opponents had been a formidable team, and they had only managed to defeat them after a hard-fought struggle. However, they had used this victory to climb to the 16th position. That guy, Mu Chen, is climbing fast. He's already reached 10th. Hiao glanced at the Academy token and suddenly pursed his lips. That kid is no ordinary person. I'm actually surprised that he's only at 10th now, Shen Songxing said, opening his eyes with a smile. But our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy is the only academy to have two teams in the top 16 now, Li Xiantong added with a slight smile. The others nodded and smiled in agreement. Su Xian, who had been playing with the academy token in her hand, suddenly let out a small gasp. Her delicate face changed slightly, and she quickly looked up. Wait a minute. Why are so many teams suddenly closing in on us? Shen Songxing paused for a moment, then quickly took out the academy token. Sure enough, he saw that all the teams in the top 16, except for theirs, were rapidly heading toward them. Among them were Xuan, ranked 1st, and Mu Chen, ranked 10th. What's going on? Li Xiantong asked, sensing something was wrong. Shen Songxing's eyes shifted slightly before he suddenly stood up, his expression darkening as he said sternly, Quick, we need to leave. We've become Xuan's target. He's planning to use us to strike back at Mu Chen. Li Xiantong and the others' expressions changed at once. Su Xian tightly gripped the academy token, her voice tinged with bitterness. I fear it's already too late. Shun Songxing's face darkened as he raised his head. From far in the distance, the sound of air tearing through the sky came rapidly. Looking down at the academy token, he saw that Ji Xian, ranked first, was now only about 10 miles away.